What do they say? April showers bring May flowers. I have been meaning to do this video for a couple weeks now, but it's like every weekend it rains. This morning it was misting, but now, as you can see, the sun is trying to come out. I think the high today is like 88 or 89 here in North Texas. That is where I live. That is where I garden. My average last frost day is typically like March 23rd, I think is when it is. If you do not know how to find your average last frost date, you just need to go to Google. If you live in a big enough city, you can just put average last frost date in your city and it'll tell you, or just put in your zip code. If you need help, just in the comment section, you can write me and I'll help you out there. But you're gonna hear that a little bit, me talking about our average last frost date, because that's typically when you can start planting out your crops, when the danger of frost is no longer prevalent. However, there's two main categories. You have your cold hardy crops, and then you have your heat loving summer variety crops. We're gonna touch on cold variety just a little bit, but since we're already in like mid-April, that window, especially like if you're in like Florida, South Georgia, South Texas, I mean, that window might be pretty much gone at this point, because again, like I said, we're 89 now here in North Texas. Next week we're gonna be 90, like low 90s, which is just crazy. But I guess we're already about to be in May, so that makes sense. But what I was saying is, the cold hardy crops, a lot of them will flower before you actually get to harvest, before you actually get the vegetable. However, I was thinking on this earlier, like today, I don't know, it's April 20 something. I planted lettuce, spinach, and Swiss chard. Those now, however, I did strategically plant them to where, I don't know if you can see that tree. I did plant them to where they're gonna get late afternoon shade, which will help me as far as the heat, and they'll get plenty of sun. So if you strategically plant, you can get a harvest from lettuce, spinach, Swiss chard. I have kale, I'll show you guys in a minute, in this bed as well. Those at this point in April are probably your cold hardy crops that are going to be successful at this point. Things like, so this is broccoli. Granted, I planted this out in January or February, and I'm just starting to get little heads of broccoli. So fingers crossed, I'm hoping for a broccoli harvest sometime soon. Either it's the end of April or the very beginning of May, but I know like middle of May, if I do a video again, you guys will see like this broccoli is gonna have flowered at this point, because hopefully it doesn't flower when we get 90 something. I might have to put out the shade cloth. That kind of makes me think of that. But anyways, your cold hardy annuals, when it gets too hot, temperatures 90s, low 90s, they're gonna flower, and you'll essentially, they think they need to reproduce versus giving you a crop. Now, things like your Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, that type of thing, I wouldn't even bother at this point. Even from started plants, again, us being in the South, it just gets too hot, especially Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts takes forever. It's like over 90 days before you see little Brussels sprouts going up the stalks. So by then, if you're 90 days out, just say, May, June, July. I mean, there's just no way, it's too hot. But if you are wanting to go for some cold hardy crops still, I would just stick to lettuce and spinach, Swiss chard, kale, all those things. It's usually like, if you look on the back of your seed packets, you can harvest somewhere, they say, between 20 and 30 days. Now, they might be small, but you'll still be able to get some type of harvest, I would think, before it gets too hot in this southern climate. Now, let's talk the heat-loving varieties, heat-tolerant crops that we know of when we think of summer vegetable gardens. So I wanted to show you this bed really quick. It is a 4x10, I believe. So most of this is broccoli. This is like the little head of broccoli I mentioned earlier. I do have one kale. I had another one, but I don't know what happened. Kale, and then I also have bush beans mixed in. I think those are jade bush beans mixed in as well. Trying something new this year because I know like once these flower and go to seed, I'm gonna have a lot of space left in this garden. So I did kind of fill in the gaps. Like right here is a baby cantaloupe, and I typically, if I'm growing things like cantaloupe or watermelon, I don't actually like leave the stem or the vine per se in the bed, but I kind of plant it towards the end here, and I can just have it going in the path there. And kind of the same thing. Here's more bush beans, and then just broccoli. I think that's another cantaloupe right there. And again, it has just all this space to be a cantaloupe. This bed, I mean, it looks nice. It looks pretty. Looks like you're growing something. However, these are Brussels sprouts, and I planted them probably the end of January or February from started little plants, like a 6-pack that you can get from a big box store. And I mean, they won't do anything, I don't think, before. And so I haven't grown brassicas in a while because the like cabbage worms just got so bad, and they've looked beautiful, and literally it's like overnight or the last 2 nights, I mean, they're just getting eaten alive, unfortunately. This one's a broccoli that got mixed in with the Brussels sprouts, but same thing, just have a few bush beans to fill in the gap. And like here's my greenhouse, so it brings afternoon shade over here, so that's what I was kind of thinking originally when I planted these out. My husband, he got me these Brussels sprouts. He doesn't quite know as much about gardening, so he was being nice. I appreciate it. I planted them, but I kind of knew they weren't going to give me Brussels sprouts. But I can grow them out and feed them to the animals. It'll be fine. Baby zinnias we'll talk about cut flowers, but get your flowers out. And then these are just potatoes and Johnson grass that's wanting to come out. Let's see, this is mostly my bush bean bed, but a little baby grasshopper. I did plant one coconut yellow squash, although it's interesting color. I'll have to watch that. Also this is sidetracked, but it's just kind of how my brain works a little bit. You can see this is volunteered, I think this was cinnamon basil, and then that is going to be a celosia. That's actually Florette's Dusty Rose, I think, was in here. So as you can see, all these are little celosias. They're everywhere. Kind of once you plant celosia and basil in a spot, it's kind of like you're going to have it forever. Oh, there's a grasshopper on the camera. Okie dokie. While we are in the raised bed garden, I did plant out some of my peppers over here. So again, kind of going to our heat-loving crops, one being peppers. Now is a great time. I would buy started peppers too at this point. I mean, you can certainly start them from seed, but you just need to think it's probably going to be a week before they germinate, and then probably another week or 2 before you can actually plant them out. But depending on where you live in the South, that's perfectly fine, because peppers do love the heat. Probably, I would say honestly probably the most out of a lot of summer vegetables. But I did some jalapenos, poblanos, red bell peppers, and some snacking peppers. I didn't do the other one year. All I did, I felt like, was hot peppers. So this year I just really did the jalapenos and poblanos. And then again, a couple cantaloupes on the end, and I'll just let them go along the side there. That's my sage. I actually let it go to flower because I like using these in my arrangements for like a filler flower, and I love the smell. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of us, when we think of gardening, our mind probably instantly goes to like the summer vegetable garden. Sorry, my brain like just goes, and I was thinking of all the taste and smells and all the crops that come out of the vegetable garden. But that's your squash. So you have, your yellow squash, crooked neck squash, your zucchinis today even. So I try and succession plant, meaning plant in stages for my squash. Last year squash bugs were terrible. So I try and like every 2 or 3 weeks start more squash if that is a crop you enjoy, because for me, when the squash bugs get so bad, I mean, they just annihilated some of my plants last year. So when I'm ripping those out and getting rid of those pests, hopefully I have these new plants starting and they'll be healthy. So I have actually harvested from yellow squash yesterday. And they look beautiful. Knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it in this video, but I do not have squash bugs yet. Granted, it is in April, but my plants look beautiful. Sorry, I squirreled. You'll notice I kind of do that. But what I was saying was, today I planted some Italian striped zucchini, and then also your just dark green zucchini. I only did like 2 plants each, because just when squash gets going, it gets going, and you get a lot. So I'll probably be sharing to the neighbors some too. But what else? Oh, and I also just did a winter squash as well. So if you didn't know, winter squash, your mind might think, oh, I need to plant this in the winter time. But no, that's not actually the case. You need to plant it in the spring, let it grow. They usually take longer. Like I think this butternut squash days to maturity was around 90 to 100 days. So again, I'm kind of under a tree right now, and it gets afternoon shade, and that's what I'm hoping, fingers crossed, and if squash bugs don't obliterate it, it'll need all that time throughout the summer, so then I can harvest it probably early fall for some winter squash. What else do I have over here? I have okra. They're little teeny tiny. Those you can just pop in the ground now. That'll be perfect. Corn is another one I succession plant. So I was mentioning, for me, corn, I try and grow more corn every week or 2. And you might be wondering, why do you succession plant corn? And it's just, I don't want to harvest all my corn at once. I'm a small family. There's 3 of us. So I just don't want all my corn at once for fresh eating specifically. So I don't know if you can kind of see. I can show you when I'm done, but you can see the size difference. And then I have some in trays right here. Do you need to start corn in trays? No. But my soil, where I live, if it's anything like sunflowers, corn, honestly, pretty much everything. I'm not even going to single anything out. But if the pill bugs don't get it when it's little tiny, I had one year with my corn, I couldn't figure out why my corn wasn't growing, and little mice were coming in and digging out and eating my corn, the little kernel seeds. I'm getting distracted. I had a garden helper come in the garden. We were talking about corn. I succession plant them. Get your watermelon. You can direct sow those in the ground too. Watermelon, cantaloupe, cucumbers. Definitely get your cucumbers in the ground, because cucumbers and eggplants, they actually get bitter when it gets super hot out. So you definitely want to get those in the ground now. I did direct seed eggplants into the ground. Like you can start them from seed. However, I wish I had small starts already, because again, eggplants is one that takes a while, and they get better, as I mentioned. Tomatoes, you can start from seed, depending on where you live. That's fine. I did both this year. Normally, like last year, I started like 50 tomato plants. I don't need 50 tomato plants. But anyways, the thing about tomatoes is when it gets really hot, like again, we're talking about mid-90s, the blossoms start to drop off. So you're not going to get essentially more tomato fruit. So, I mean, at this point, the end of April or so, I would try and get you some started plants. Usually the stores have some cheap ones. Again, if you want to, you have cool variety seeds you want to start, go for it. Maybe you can strategically plant them like I did, so they'll get afternoon shade. But again, they're probably going to take a week or so to germinate, and then before you can plant them out, it's probably going to be another 2 weeks. So you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks before you can probably even plant your tomato varieties out into your garden, versus a started plant that probably already has a 6 to 8 week jump start. Some of them, which I don't recommend, but they're already growing fruit in the stores, or like box stores when you get tomatoes. So tomato, I think that's all I have. Ah! Oh, that's a dragonfly. Yeah, I was like, or is that a horsefly? But it's a dragonfly. All the peppers, same thing. Go ahead and get them planted out. Your hot peppers, your snacking peppers. Get your peppers out. I also planted some tomatillos. I think that's all I have. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's all I have in my garden, I think, on right now. But now is the time. Run, do not walk. Go ahead and get your gardens started. Now is, again, like the time to get your garden started so you have summer vegetables. Flowers, again, if you're past your average last frost date, all the flowers are ready to go out. I have zinnias and sunflowers. I also, depending if you've been on my channel for a while, I grow cut flowers as well. So all the things are out right now. I even have, for me, Status, I just think Status is an awesome filler flower because it grows for me, even though it's like a cold hardy flower, it grows for me the whole entire summer. And I have gomphrena, basil, it's another foliage that I use, celosia. I do have snapdragons and even bachelor buttons, and again, they'll be fine for a while. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my cut flowers trying to figure out what all I have. But anyways, again, once you're past your average last frost date, you really are in the clear to go ahead without any fear of frost or anything like that to get your garden started. And all they need is some soil, some light, and some water, and you are good to grow. It doesn't have to be raised beds. It can be raised beds, container, in ground. I do all 3 of those, but just have fun with it. Happy gardening. I'll have a good one. Until next time. Bye, friends. Some yellow squash. I actually harvested our first yellow squash yesterday. It's the first time I've had squash in April. Pretty wild. I'm actually waiting for my tomato clips. I like to grow my squash vertical. Tomatoes. These are Better Boy tomatoes. There's some blossoms on this one. Just some little okra. I need to come in here and eat some. A couple extra bush beans that I had left over. More okra. This was my first planting of corn on this row. This was about 2 weeks later. And then in these trays, probably tomorrow, I'll plant these out. This is my watermelon, cantaloupes, and then I'm waiting on some cucumbers, and I have more tomatoes I'm waiting to sprout there.